Do the fundamentalist apologists have findings that can be considered worthy evidence? And should I perhaps reconvert based on it? Stay tuned and we'll see if today's the day that I declare the Christian apologist a worthy academic. As I have stated in a previous video, I will no longer debate evangelists or any other type of Christian fundamentalists. But back when I used to, they would always claim that they had evidence to prove their point. For instance, they would ask me why I didn't believe in Noah's Ark and the Genesis flood, or why I didn't believe that the world was approximately 5,000 years old. And I would simply answer it was because we had overwhelming science in every genre of it that conclusively proves that Genesis didn't happen the way the Bible portrays it. And then that condescending look would come from the fundamentalist when he would sit back and say, but we have our scientists too with evidence. And of course, when you would research these scientists, you would find that they were from the Institute for Creation Research, and you would find that their preposterous theories on how the world came to be were easily discredited by the rest of the scientific community. And these fundamentalist Christians, who largely make up the apologists, also claim they have good evidence when defending the legitimacy of the New Testament as well. But is it really evidence? I'm saying it absolutely isn't. Just like with their so-called science, their reasoning isn't valid. And I wonder if they've actually looked up the actual definition of evidence. Well, here it is. Evidence defined: the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. Note the word true, derived from truth. In what they present, whether defending the Old or New Testament, does not fit this definition. And honestly, I've never seen them present an argument that actually does. And I will give examples of this. But their first counterattack, and we'll use an atheist as an example, is that they can't prove their belief system as well. And this is a very important differentiation to make. The atheist doesn't have a belief system. The atheists, as well as us unspecified theists like myself, do not have a set of proofs that Christ never rose from the dead. We are saying that there's a severe lack of evidence to show that he did. So in other words, we're not proving evidence, we're showing lack thereof. And it's important to understand, especially when the apologist debates an atheist, that he has the burden to prove a God, not the atheist to prove that he doesn't exist. So you might ask, well, how is that fair? Let's take an example. If a neighbor came to my house and said he just saw a man dressed like a clown, levitating 10 feet in the air, I'm more than likely not going to believe that. It's not up to me to prove that there isn't a man dressed as a clown levitating 10 feet up in the air, as my neighbor's claim is irrational, illogical, and physically impossible. It would be up to the neighbor to drag me down the street, show that it's happening, and then up to him to show me further that it wasn't just some sort of constructed illusion, as practiced by professional magicians. And the same concept would not only go for the belief of the resurrection of Christ, but even for the belief in the existence of a God to begin with. Now, there are schools of philosophy that tell you that your senses can't be trusted to make judgments of your reality. But I believe much more in the Ayn Rand objectivism, which states that your senses are the fundamental tool to judge the legitimacy of your reality. And, being an unspecified theist, my belief in some sort of higher power would make Ayn Rand cringe. For I am stating that I believe in a limited magic. And if I were to take this limited magic to an atheist, I'm telling him that I believe in an invisible God in an invisible world that exists in a different reality from the one we live in. And his answer is going to be, but I simply don't see it. It's not observable in front of me. He doesn't have to prove that a physically impossible magic, according to our senses with everything we know, is incapable of happening. And the fallacy of the apologist is him stating that he has evidence to do so. For example, Dr. William Lane Craig believes that Jesus' birth came from a virgin mother. I can use science to show that there's no evidence that that could happen. And furthermore, I can use the actual Hebrew text in Isaiah 7:14 to show that the word for virgin didn't really mean virgin. It meant young woman or young unmarried woman. Dr. Craig's response, and I read an interview where he said this, was that we have the evidence that the virgin birth occurred because it was confirmed in Matthew 1:23. And this isn't evidence, this is a speculation, because he doesn't understand the nature of the word evidence, and neither do the rest of the apologists. Evidence is being able to prove the effect of gravity over and over. Evidence is being able to prove the effect of the coefficient of friction over and over. Historical evidence, so to speak, is never as concrete, but we have to cross-section it with other findings that will give good plausibility that the event actually occurred. For instance, we can pretty much conclusively say that the Holocaust occurred. Only a tiny percentage of people remain alive who were there, but we have many videotaped interviews of direct testimony. We have photographs. We have Auschwitz, which you can tour through. We have films of the concentration camps. But let's go back further. How do we know that the pioneers actually came to America on ship? Well, we have many captains' logs that were original, signed by those captains. We have many old historical sites, such as Jamestown, and we have many original diaries, journals, and letters written from the time, signed by people who were there. So we can match what we read in history about these people directly to the written words signed by them, what we would call authorship. And understand something, this is important. We are not talking about supernatural events. They are very believable events that have occurred many times in the eras of history of mankind. This is a huge difference from what the apologist is trying to defend. First of all, what they're claiming defies all laws of science. When Dr. Craig, for example, claims that they have vast amounts of manuscripts from the New Testament that have been cross-checked and agree with each other on the basic premise that Christ rose from the dead, that is a fallacy. It is a fallacy because, one, they do not have direct authorship, and it would take massive amounts of people with signed authorship who eyewitnessed the event to even begin to make a rational person believe that this happened. But they don't even have that. They have testimonies written 1/2 to 1 century after the fact. And on top of that, these testimonies in the New Testament were anonymous. We don't know who wrote them. So at that point, Dr. Craig and others aren't giving evidence, they are giving speculation. And that is the difference. And more so, they're stating these speculations as truth. And that's my problem with them, because most of these apologists have doctorate-level college degrees, and they know the difference between presenting evidence and presenting speculation. What they should be saying is what the unspecified theist and even the atheist says, and that is, we don't know. Yes, I believe because of the complexity of man and the small margins in the universe and the laws of nature that allow man to exist as well as all the other creatures, that would make me think that there is a higher power, an intelligent designer. But that's just what I believe. I don't know it for a fact. I think ever since the dawn of man, we have all been trying to search for truth as to the origin of our very existence. And yes, scientific study has taken us a great way there. We no longer think a god named Apollo is responsible for sunlight. But the Christian fundamentalist apologists are muddying the waters, and even worse, they're teaching at the theological colleges. They are taking young, impressionable people, as well as reiterating to the fundamentalist communities that their reasoning is based on evidence when it is clearly based on this speculation. And until they can start being honest with the public in terms of what they know, what they're not sure of, and what they don't know at all, they will not have my respect as academics. But I have something that I at least admit is fiction. Check out my novel, The Second Fall, an offbeat apocalypse, highly irreverent and sure to offend the fundamentalist. On Amazon, see the link in the video description as well as the banner, and I will see you next time as we once again take the sword of reason and reality and thrust it right through the heart of ignorance.